Hello, my friends. It's your buddy Phil here, project management trainer and coach. Got a brilliant question from a student today about how to estimate software projects that are complex, whether they're big or whether they're small. Now, if a software project you're working on is complex, the best recipe for that is Agile. I'm going to show you why. Agile, in and of itself, is built to deal with complexity. So, if you have an Agile project, the way you cope with complexity is a lot more effective than trying to use a traditional approach. Let me explain really quick based on the Stacy complexity model that you see on the screen here. The Stacy model shows you that if you're working on projects that are based on requirements that are close to agreement and technicalities that are close to certainty, you could use a simple method. But as you begin to work on more complex, not the word, more complex type arrangements, you need to be more agile because change is expected to happen. The unexpected is to be expected. So as you begin to approach the complex zone, you need to up your game and become more agile. And therefore, the way you estimate needs to be different. As you see on the screen, agile works best when there's high variability, when there's a need to experiment and discover. So this is your element. You're right here in your element in the world of agile if there's complexity at hand. However, if it is simple, you want to use a predictive approach. So I'm going to show you two ways to estimating. I'll show you the traditional way first. The traditional way to estimating is to use a very predictive approach, scope out everything, cost everything, schedule everything, and come up with your final ideas, plus or minus 10, 15, 20%, whatever your company typically goes with. Now, if we take a look at this Microsoft project schedule I'm about to show you here, this Microsoft project schedule is used for the estimating. And as you can see here, everything is scoped out. So we determine the scope, we secure project sponsorship, we do all the necessary actions under scoping, right? And then we do the analysis, we do the design, we do the development, we do the testing, and we do the training, the implementation, everything, document, pilot, deploy. We do all of that, right? Now, in addition to this, you of course can see that this is all planning. So in planning, when we use a predictive approach, all of this stuff is going to be planned in detail. Now, my question to you is, when you're dealing with complexity, how efficient, how effective do you think this will be? Planning everything. There's bound to be some stuff that you will miss. There's bound to be stuff that is emergent. And for that reason, I want to encourage project managers who use this type of predictive approach to think a little bit more hybridized. Begin to expect the unexpected and be ready to replan quite copiously if you're dealing with a complex software project. Now, there are some software projects that are off the shelf. We've done it before for a client. We've done it for numerous clients. We know what our cycle is. We know what the analysis pretty much would be. It is within certain boundaries. Now, are there instances where there might be multiple software pieces involved, multiple systems, multiple never really explored before hardware systems? Yes. In those instances, you need to be careful and be ready to adapt. Okay. So you could have a predictive approach where everything is estimated, everything is planned. And I don't want to go into too much detail, but I'll say here, let's go to the views, and you should think about the resources, right? If you're estimating cost, think about how much each resource will cost. That's the right way to do it. Think about what the overtime will cost, come in here and populate it. And if you're a very skilled user using Microsoft Project, it will do everything for you. It will base the estimates on how many hours those individuals are working. As you can see here, we have resource names. So if you follow it step by step, methodically, sensibly, calculating and estimating based on the hours each resource is working, you'll arrive at an estimate. But whether the estimate is accurate is debatable because you're working on a complex, changeable arrangement. If it is something that has never been done before, you're walking on a slippery slope trying to estimate everything because, like I said, the unexpected is expected. Okay, but a tool such as this, or any of the other tools, whether Primavera or even Excel, could do all the calculations for you. We have columns here that we could insert for things like the cost. Let's go to the cost column and see if there's anything in there. It might be at 0 on this one, but we have a cost column. Yeah, it's at 0. We have a cost column. We have a baseline cost for tracking cost. So you could estimate the cost. You could estimate the schedule. As you can see here, there's a Gantt chart view, right? You can try your best to estimate the resources using things like the resource sheet. Could monitor it using things like the resource usage sheet, and this will give you an idea of your resource usage, so that as you begin to see the project move in ways you didn't expect, you got to adapt. And that's why I say a hybrid mindset is good. I've worked on schedules that are 3,000 lines long, 20,000 lines long, and I can tell you, except you are absolutely predictive and you know pretty firmly where everything is going, this is not the best way to go. A better way to go is to be more agile, to do it in sprints. And I'm going to show you really quickly in the world of Agile what you would do. So in the world of Agile, as opposed to having excruciatingly detailed schedule and cost estimates, we first of all have a high-level idea, a product roadmap. My advice would be to break down the complexity by planning releases, and break down that complexity of whatever you're doing by breaking the release into features. And in other words, plan when each feature set will be released. That is going to help you to plan your sprints and help you know what your end goal from each sprint is going to be. So whatever your sprint goal, aim to achieve it, do it in small iterations, 2 weeks, less. And in that way, as you're moving along this software project, you're delivering working software incrementally. Now, even if you don't release what you're doing as often as 2 weeks, you could have reviews and demos where your customer or end user is able to assess if this is really what they're looking for. Your team is also going to experience a boost of confidence when they're delivering that frequently and the customer or end user affirms happiness, even if you don't release. So my advice for estimating in a world of software that is in the complex space, we're not talking about a cookie cutter software application you've done time and time again. We're talking about something new. You need to understand the concept of ideal time is never as picture perfect as you would think in execution, right? You may say, oh, we've got 8 minutes, 36 seconds left on the clock on this game, but that could very well play out in a variety of scenarios. I encourage you to go read up about the virtual case file project, the VCF project. You'll find it on Wikipedia. It's an example of an FBI project that was done using predictive methods, went hundreds of millions over budget until they decided to use an Agile approach. So what I'm saying is consider learning a little bit more about Agile. In the world of Agile, we use empirical data. We start off with the concept of triangulation. We build on that by using things like planning poker or using what we call affinity estimating. It's a very quick, rapid way for you estimating using t-shirt sizing. You could convert these at the end of the day into the actual story points. But it's a very rapid way of you estimating based on not hours this time, but really it's based on complexity. The whole concept behind story points and planning poker and t-shirt sizing is really taking away the guesswork of hours and using a more agnostic measure. It factors in complexity, it factors in risk, it factors in a lot more than just how many hours is it going to take you? There's more you need to factor in: uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity, human behavior, and interaction, there are many ways you could take a look at a user story or requirement and estimate it using story points. So story points is a great way to go. At the end of the day, when you're done with your story points, you'll be able to determine your velocity over a period of time. How many story points do you get done within a sprint? And from there, that is where you can really plan better. And of course, we keep our teams intact. We have an intact team that's doing this. And over a period of time, we're able to predict, give or take, how much can we deliver within 4 to 6 weeks? Which of these features are we likely to be able to deliver? And that's the way to think. So when we do things in the world of Agile, it's different. I could go into a lot more detail, but I'll spare you that time. And I will just ask, learn a little bit more about how you can do this in Agile if you aren't already doing it. If you are still in just only predictive, it's not the best way for you dealing with complexity. You could plan everything out and things change, things move around. We see it all the time. So you need to be agile. Also, management needs to understand that when you're dealing with complexity, using hard estimates, single point estimates, is just not the way to go. It's not a smart way to go. No matter how impatient a customer is or how impatient management is, they need to be trained to understand how complexity works. It hasn't been done before. Level of you meeting this, the level of certainty is extremely low. All right. But if you deal with it in an agile fashion, you're biting off a chunk at a time, you see, instead of trying to do everything at once. So my recommendation to you is be as agile as possible, be as adaptive as possible, and you'll be glad that you were at the end of the day. The PMI presents models for hybrid thinking. I'll just show you a couple of them and we'll be done. One way of thinking hybridly is look at doing things in a split, agile followed by predictive, or do an agile predictive sub, right? Both of them simultaneously. Or think about an agile project with a little bit of a predictive component, or think about a largely predictive project with an agile component. As a project manager, you should be able to look at the situation and assess what should we use. Remember, it all starts from the Stacy model, right? The Stacy model, that's how you want to think. Am I in the simple zone or am I truly in the complex zone? If you are in the complex zone, what are you doing using single point predictive estimates? Don't do it. All right. Be agile. I hope this helps. You take care and bye for now.